Jai Gurudev and Hari Om. 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 Brahmanandam Paramasukadam Kevalam Jnanamurtim Dvandvatitam Gaganasadrisham Tattvamasyadilaksham Ekam Nityam Vimalamacchalam Sarvadhi Sakshibhutam Bhavatitam Trigunarahitam Sadgurum Tam Namami Shrutismritipurananam Alayam Karunalayam Namami Bhagavat Padam Shankaram Lokashankaram Shankaram Shankaracharyam Keshavam Badarayanam Sutra Bhashya Kritau Vande Bhagavantau Punah Punah Sadashivasamaramбham Shankaracharya-madhyamam Asmadacharya-paryantam Vande Guru-paramparam Vande Guru-paramparam Om Sahana Bhavatu Sahanau Bhunaktu Sahaviryankaravavahai Tejasvinavadhitamastu ma vidvishavahai Om Shanti 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 Narayanam Namaskritya Naram Chaiva Narottamam Devim Saraswatim Chaiva Tato Jayamudirayet. Just give me a minute. I open this. think we finished 20th. We are in 31st verse, I think, right? Let me just. We did this yesterday, right? Yeme matamidam nityam anutishtanti manavaha shraddhavanto nasuyanto muchante tepi karmavihi. Those people who constantly follow this teaching of mine, full of faith, without asuya, without finding fault with the teaching or the teacher, they too are released by the karma phalas. They are freed from the hold of the karma phalas, they gain moksha. Stop. We did the Shraddha and all that, isn't it? Yeah, just start with this previous chapter. How Krishna's vision is to be followed. The verb in this verse is anutishtanti, meaning follow, practice, or live according to. Manavaha means those who come under the mandate of Manu, the ordainer of the law, that is Ishvara. In other words, all human beings. And how long do they live this way? Nityam, always. This is not just a morning or evening practice, nor is it a Monday, Friday, or Sunday practice. It is a constant practice. And what is it that is practiced? What do the people follow? They follow what was said by Krishna, his vision, Me Matam, this particular sadhana, Karma Yoga, and they follow it properly with Shraddha. Shraddhavantaha Anasuyantaha, and with no intolerance towards the Lord, his vision, or the Karma Yoga that he has advised as a means for gaining liberation, moksha. The Shraddha mentioned in this verse is looking upon the words of the Shastra, the Veda, as unfolded by a teacher as true. Whether one understands these words to be true or not, one at least accepts them in good faith. This Shraddha extends to the words of the Gita as well, since the Gita does not say anything other than what is said by the Veda. The English translation for Shraddha is faith. Shraddha is operative when, even though these scriptures may seem to be contradictory according to your perception, you accept them and inquire into their message. Shraddha grants you the disposition, the attitude necessary for further pursuit. What you can know is determined by what you already know. When you look at the Shastra in the form of sentences, you derive a certain meaning from it based on what you already know. Only on the basis of what you already know can you absorb or understand any sentence. In fact, in other words, you do not understand more than what you already know. What you will understand of the Shastra is determined by where you are coming from and where you are right now. Based on your past experiences and present understanding, there is a predisposition to what a sentence can reveal to you. Therefore, When you look at a sentence that has a new message to give, what can it give you? Can the intentions behind the sentence be understood? The intention of a sentence is important in communication. When someone forms a sentence, the person has an intended meaning to convey, and that meaning is what you should receive. Sometimes, however, the words spoken do not convey the intended meaning of the speaker. And even when the intended meaning is clearly conveyed, it is anyone's guess whether the listener or the reader will pick it up. This is especially true if the message is unlike anything that the listener already knows. Whereas, if the message is similar to what he or she knows, it is much easier for the person to pick it up. Using the knowledge he or she already has, the person can go further in his or her understanding of what is being conveyed. But if the message is entirely dissimilar, meaning that it is against everything the person has so far concluded about himself or herself and the world, it is not even mind-boggling. It simply sounds silly. How can everything be one when all I see are differences? To say that these differences are false, that everything is mithya, when so much of what is experienced is tangible, the walls, physical bodies, objects, even the microbes that bother me so much, makes no sense whatsoever because everything seems to be so real. This is because the word mithya is not properly understood, nor do the various translations help. One will translate mithya as false, another as illusion, and still another as delusion. To say that the world is any of these does not agree with my experience. To say the world is an illusion is itself an illusion. The very concept is an illusion. If you consider the world an illusion, where does that leave you? Are you not in the world? And since you are, does this not mean that both you and your statement are an illusion? If the one who talks is an illusion and that which is talked about is illusion, then talking also is illusion. This being the case, everything becomes Satya because the one who talks and what is talked about belong to the same category. If everything is illusion, where is Satya? Thus, you can call everything Satya or you can call it illusion. In Buddhism, everything is Mithya and therefore Mithya is Satya. To say everything is Mithya means that everything becomes Satya. Therefore, words like illusion, delusion, and so on simply do not convey what is intended unless there is an understanding of what Satya is and what Mithya is. To appreciate their meanings, you must know Vedanta, which means you must know what the statement Tattvamasi means. And unless you know Tattvamasi, you will not understand Tattvamasi. Thus, we have an interesting paradox here. If you already know Tattvamasi, you need not study Tattvamasi. And if you do not know Tattvamasi, how are you going to understand Tattvamasi? It is for this reason that one needs a lot of Shraddha and a teacher who is well established in the knowledge. It is not a simple matter. To study Vedanta requires Shraddha. Otherwise, it will have no meaning whatsoever. Vedanta as a pramana. Vedanta can never be the subject matter of academic pursuit because it is based purely upon Shraddha. The Shraddha is in the Shastra as a pramana for which supporting logic is given. Only when Vedanta is looked upon as a pramana, a means of knowledge, does it have a value. Otherwise, it has none. When I say Vedanta is a pramana, you have no way of proving that it is not a pramana, because one pramana cannot be dismissed by another pramana. This is because for a pramana to be dismissed by another pramana, it should be within the scope of the other pramana. But what a particular pramana makes you know is not available for verification or dismissal by another pramana. For example, when I see an object as yellow and it is really blue, only the eyes can disqualify what I saw as wrong. I may still see the object in the same way, but the eyes alone have to say, not the ears, that it is not yellow, it is blue. Due to some problem in the eyes, I may not be able to see it as blue. No other pramana has a scope here. Once a pramana is accepted as an independent pramana, then it has to prove itself as a pramana, as a means of knowledge. For it to do so, you have to give the pramana a chance. If you do not give the pramana a chance, you should not talk against it. You cannot establish that a means of knowledge is not a pramana just by talking about it. This is an unreasonable position to take. And a person who knows it as a pramana will have no interest in refuting such a stance. You have not allowed the pramana to prove itself to you. A reasonable stance can only be taken after you have analyzed the pramana and worked with it. But you can only do this if you accept it as a pramana in the first place. And to do this requires Shraddha. Therefore, when you work with it with Shraddha, it works. Only then can it prove itself. There is no basis for objection. The pramana says you are not a jiva, an individual. That individuality is just a notion. It says you are param brahma, a statement that is not something to be simply swallowed. It is to be understood. Because the pramana is saying something desirable, what basis do you have for any objection? None. Since the pramana says you are Brahman, then until you see that you are Brahman, you should work with it. If you see that you are Brahman, there is no problem. And if you do not, on what basis can you say you are not Brahman? You can only say, Vedanta says I am Brahman, but I don't think I am. And besides, other people tell me I'm an idiot. This seems to be more reasonable to me because it seems to be truer. When what is said by the pramana is desirable, you are the whole, you are Brahman, then you have to go for it. No one needs to tell you that you are not Brahman. This you knew long ago. That you are not Brahman is not something that you have to be taught by a scripture, a religion, prophets, or messiahs. The Shruti is not telling you something you already know. It is telling you something you do not know. It says you are Brahman, which is something desirable. To hear that you are the whole is definitely not undesirable because the whole is exactly what you want to be. Behind all your pursuits is the conclusion that you are small, and it is from this conclusion that you seek to be free. The Shruti tells you that you are already free from being small. Therefore, you have no basis for saying that what the Shruti says is wrong. You cannot prove that you are not Brahman. If you could, then Brahman would be within the scope of perception and inference, which it is not. Perception and inference are the means of knowledge available to me, the subject, Atma, whose essence is Brahman. Atma is Brahman. Because Atma is not an object to be known by perception or inference, you cannot prove that the self is not Brahman. This is why Shraddha in the Shruti is as a pramana is necessary. And because you have to understand what the statement Tattvamasi is, to be able to know it, you must go to someone who knows, a teacher. You may say that if a teacher can come to know, then you also should be able to figure it out. But the teacher came to know because he or she had a guru, and that guru came to know because he or she also had a guru. Like this, it goes on, right back to the first teacher. Lord Krishna said, by me alone it was taught at the beginning, and it works if you have Shraddha in the Shruti as a pramana. Shraddha is an attitude that enables you to say, the words are true. My understanding alone is not proper. And if Shraddha is not there, you will give it up, saying, I have studied so many Upanishads and have concluded that Vedanta is just another trip. The Upanishads say that you are Brahman, and other scriptures say that you are not. Which should I accept? They are all speculations. The very Upanishads themselves are contradictory. In this way, you can dismiss it all because of a lack of Shraddha. Without Shraddha, confusion is inevitable. While writing an introduction to the translation of Shankara's Brahma Sutra Bhashya, the author who had translated it as part of the Max Muller series wrote that Shankara did not know the difference between Brahman and Ishvara. He based his conclusion on a few passages saying that where the word Brahman appears in the text, Shankara used the word Parameshvara, and where the text says Parameshvara, he used the word Brahman. Translations by such people are very dangerous in that they totally miss the point. Whether the word is Parameshvara, Paramatma, or Brahman, it is all the same. The word Jiva can also be included, since Jiva and Brahman are also one and the same. Shankara used the word Ishvara in the sense of Brahman as the cause of the creation, Jagat Karanam Brahma. Sometimes he used Param Brahma and sometimes he used Parameshvara. The meaning is the same, as he explained very clearly. He used Brahman in the way he did because that is how the Shastra used it. The word Brahman is like that. Parameshvara is Brahman. Brahman is Parameshvara because he is the cause of the whole Jagat. Jagat Karanatvat Brahmaiva Parameshvaraha. When you accept the pramana with Shraddha, you do not dismiss what it says. Rather, you doubt your understanding of what it says. Because Arjuna had this attitude, he did not tell Krishna that his words were contradictory. He merely said that they seemed to be contradictory. This then is what is meant by Shraddha, and you need it all the way. Because moksha is in the form of knowledge, you require Shuddha Antakarana, a proper mind. And for that, you require Karma Yoga, which is based upon Shraddha in the sense that you want to know that you are Brahman. Because this knowledge is contained in the Shastra, you have Shraddha in the Shastra as a means of knowledge, a pramana. The people mentioned in the verse under study have the Shraddha, which is why they are called Shraddhavantaha. Those who have Shraddha are also described here as Anasuyantaha. To understand the meaning of this word, there are two Sanskrit words we should look at, Asuya and Matsarya. Matsarya can be translated into English as jealousy. Suppose someone has gained something, some success, skill, wealth, knowledge, or some possession or other. Seeing the achievement of this person, another person may become unhappy. This unhappiness is jealousy. In Sanskrit, it is paraphrased as Parotkrishtam Drishtva Jayamanaha santapaha matsaryah. The words Jayamanaha santapaha describe this jealousy. Santapa meaning sorrow, sadness, some affliction or uneasiness in the mind, and Jayamana meaning being born. This uneasiness or discomfort that occurs in the mind is called jealousy. It can be seen even in the way the jealous person looks at the other person. This then is what is meant by matsarya, jealousy. Then there is asuya, which means intolerance, another form of jealousy. Asuya is when a person tries to find a defect in a person who has some virtues. Guneshu dosha darshanam. When a man praises the virtues of another man, you may say that he is praising him because he does not know him and you do. In fact, you have a long list of things to prove that a person is not at all virtuous. Asuya is the characteristic of always trying to find some skeletons in a person's closet, some lack, some blemish in the person. You try to find some defect among the person's virtues or in the very virtues themselves. Jealousy is unhappiness in different degrees over the success or happiness of others. But asuya, also an expression of jealousy, goes one step further and finds fault with the person, with the people themselves. Trying to find defects in the vision is not Shraddha. Krishna is talking here about people who have Shraddha in his vision, which is the Shruti's vision. Such people do not try to see defects in it, and so they need not follow it. Those who attempt to find defects in the Shruti always try to justify that what it is saying is not true. But this justification is always backed by a prior conclusion. Any justification is preceded by a conclusion. You conclude and then justify. Even though the Shruti can give the person moksha, still he or she finds some blemish in it. Such people will say, Karma Yoga? I have seen a lot of Karma Yogis. They suffer as much as I do. What have they accomplished? Nothing. They are still the same. How does a person know they are the same? They alone know what they were before and what they are now. No one else knows. To say they are the same is nothing but the person's perception, and that is not exactly a reliable criterion to follow here. Those who have Shraddha in the vision of the Shruti are different. They accept that Karma Yoga will give them the Antakarana necessary for gaining the knowledge. Such people do not have any asuya, meaning that they accept what is said by Krishna gladly and are therefore anasuyantaha. The verse says that they also get liberated, released by the karmas. Te api karma bihi muchyante. By karma yoga, when these people gain antakarana shuddhi, they are able to assimilate the knowledge that I am Jagat Karanam Brahma. And because of this knowledge, they are free of all the karma phalas standing in their account. That is all the sanchita karmas. This is what is meant by te api karma bihi mujyante. Because Arjuna wanted to be a sannyasi, Krishna tells him sannyasis are liberated and karma yogis are also liberated. There is no question of karma yogis being second rate here. The only difference between the two is that sannyasis pursue knowledge directly to the exclusion of all else, and karma yogis prepare themselves for pursuing knowledge. Just give me a minute. Huh? Can anyone just read a little of this? I'll just be back. There may be a time lag for a karma yogi with reference to gaining the knowledge, but this will also happen for a sannyasi whose antakarna shuddhi is not complete. I will just stop here once. If anyone can continue, just give me 2 minutes, I'll be back.
Jai Gurudev. The point here is that knowledge has to be gained. Karma yogis are also mumukshus. They also gain liberation, and liberation is not gained by sannyasis alone. Without giving up karma yogis as well as sannyasis are liberated from all karmas. Thus, the word api, when taken to means also, can create confusion, whereas when it is taken to mean as well, there is no confusion at all. Jai Gurudev.
Yeah. Thank you, Sheila ji. एत्वे तदभ्यसूयन्तो नानुतिष्ठन्ति मे मतम् सर्वज्ञानविमूढांस्तान् विद्धि नष्टान चेतसः. Two, whereas, ye, those who abhyasuyantaha, being critical without reason, etat, this, may, my, matam, vision, na anutishtanti, do not follow, sarva jnana vimudhan, deluded in all realms of knowledge, achetasaha, devoid of discrimination, tan, them, nashtan, as lost, vidhi, no. Whereas those who, being critical without reason, do not follow my vision, know them who are deluded in all realms of knowledge and devoid of discrimination as lost. In the previous verse, Krishna spoke of those who followed his vision, his mata, meaning the vision of Ishvara, Ishvarasya matam. Such people follow with Shraddha without having any asuya, without trying to find fault with the vision. In other words, they are karma yogis. They too, they api, gain liberation just as sannyasis do. For Krishna to have said that two types of people gain liberation, moksha, is in keeping with what he said in the beginning about there being only two lifestyles, nishtas for moksha, either sannyasa or karma yoga. There is no third nishta at all. Whether one is a renunciate or a karma yogi, liberation can be gained. Throughout the Gita, there is often a tu, whereas, indicating that a contrast, which may seem to be a criticism, is being made to bring out the point Krishna was making. Suppose, for example, Krishna had said, this particular thing will release you and is therefore good for you. He would then also say, and if you do not follow this, you will have this particular problem. In other words, if you have knowledge, you are free. And if you do not, you have samsara. Here the particle tu is to denote such a contrast. This particle also indicates an answer to a question, even though the question may not actually be stated. The question may simply be implied and the answer to it is introduced by tu. Tu is also used for emphasis. In this verse, however, tu contrasts people who do not follow the Lord's vision with those who do. Jnana yoga or sannyasa, of course, is too far removed for those who do not follow Krishna's vision. Whereas Karma Yoga, on the other hand, is possible for such people. But even this they do not follow, na anutishtanti. Instead, they perform karmas solely to fulfill their own ragadveshas without considering whether this approach can give them what they really want in life. Human life implies the use of reason, viveka. It is not just a matter of doing whatever one wants. People tend to think that they have to fulfill whatever desire pops up in their heads. This behavior is natural for an animal, but not for a human being. If a dog feels like barking, it is natural for it to bark. The dog need not think about whether it should bark or not, nor does it have the discriminating buddhi to do so. Whereas, if you feel like shouting, you can always refrain from doing so because you have a free will with a discriminating buddhi. Living a human life implies discrimination. In order to live the life of a human being, a person has to make use of this buddhi, viveka. Krishna was talking here about those who do not make use of their viveka. In other words, those who do not follow his mata because they have asuya. They are abhyasuyantaha. To justify how they are living, they find some blemish or other with reference to Krishna's vision. They criticize it, disregard it, and put forth endless arguments to justify what they are doing. Being critical, finding blemishes in this mata, they do not follow it. With reference to these people, Krishna says, please know them, tan vidhi. Understand those who do not follow this vision to be sarvajnana vimudhaha, sarveshu jnaneshu vimudhaha, deluded in terms of all forms of knowledge. Such people are deluded about their familial and social obligations, which come under Karma Yoga. They are deluded with respect to national obligations also. They do not even remember or think about the many forces, devatas, that are constantly at work to keep them going and towards whom there are certain obligations. All these obligations are disregarded by those who do not follow Krishna's vision. Instead, they think that the family, the society, and the nation are obliged to them. They think that the society should protect them and help them gain whatever it is that they want. And if the society fails to do this, then the national government should do it. People who think this way are self-centered, interested only in their own welfare, which means fulfilling their raga dveshas, unmindful of the welfare and interests of others. Thus, with reference to dharma and adharma, right and wrong, they are deluded, vimudhas. They are also vimudhas with reference to atma and anatma, what is real and not real, what is true and not true. With reference to all human pursuits, dharma, artha, kama, and moksha, they are vimudhas. Even with reference to eating, they are deluded. They do not know what to eat, what not to eat, how much to eat, and so on. Without becoming a faddist, a person should know the basics of what is important in life. But for these people, delusion is rampant. It exists everywhere. This is the meaning of sarva in the expression sarva jnana vimudhaha. At all levels of understanding, there is delusion. Thus, we are to know that the people being discussed here are totally deluded. All understanding requires discrimination. At all levels of understanding, there is viveka involved. This viveka has to be applied with reference to performing actions and responding to situations. When people do not have Viveka, we should understand that they are deluded. Their delusion is not in terms of having a low IQ. If such were the case, we would not be talking about them at all. Their only problem is that they lack discrimination in the sense that they have the capacity to discriminate, but they do not make use of it. Therefore, they are avivekis. Krishna referred to them as achetasaha, and because they lack discrimination, they are deluded in every way. Such people are to be understood as lost. So he says, Tan nashtan vidhi. Know them to be lost. Nashta is one who is lost to everything, one who does not get what is to be gained in this world. Even though the people being discussed here may have money and power from the standpoint of Viveka, from the standpoint of what they really want, they are definitely Nashtas. If in the process of gaining power and money, a number of conflicts are also gained, one has to question whether the money and power are worth having. A Viveki is one who always thinks about whether what he or she wants is good for him or her. One may want money for one's own happiness and peace, but if in the process one also buys a lot of conflicts, sorrow, and sleepless nights, then the money is worthless to him or her. It may be useful to someone else, but not to him or her. If conflicts accompanies any gain, the bargain is a bad one. How bad it is has to be seen, and your ability to do so is always in proportion to the discriminative power you have. A mature person, one who has viveka, is one who sees the immensity of the loss involved when something is gained. When whatever you want to gain involves a great loss in terms of your happiness, your peace of mind, shanti, you should be able to see the laws at work and refrain from the pursuit. This is what is meant by viveka and maturity. When you take all the pros and cons into account, you may find that what seemed like a good bargain is not really a bargain after all. Thus, the Viveki is one who is not nashta, lost. Those who are nashta are lost in the sense that they do not get anything here in this world, much less in the hereafter. They are not dead, they are lost, and this we are to know. In chapter 2, we have seen how the same idea was expressed. There too, the word pranashyati, he is destroyed, was used. There it was said that for the one who dwells upon a given object, dhyayataha pumsam, there develops an affection, some love for the object. And what a person loves, he or she wants to have. Thus, with reference to the object, a desire is born. Kamaha upajayate. If the desire is fulfilled, there is no problem. Only if it is not fulfilled is there a problem. Not fulfilling a desire is more common than fulfilling it. Therefore, the unfulfilled desires leads to krodha, anger. And once anger comes, you are lost. Among other things, anger brings about an inner torpor and prevents you from understanding the true situation. Whatever you had learnt in the past from similar situations is not available to you when you are angry. You may have burnt your fingers before, but the wisdom gathered in the past is not at your service once krodha has overtaken you. In the midst of anger, the memory, smriti, does not work, and your discriminative power, viveka shakti, is gone. The knowledge one has with reference to what is to be done, what is not to be done, the karya, akarya viveka, your inquiry, etc., are all lost. That is, buddhi nasha takes place. When the buddhi, chetas, is gone, the person is destroyed, lost, pranashyati. Why? Because it is the buddhi that makes the person a human being. If the buddhi is gone, there is a problem. While we are to understand that such a person is lost, the loss is not an irretrievable one. At any time, the person can become a viveki. Therefore, he or she is only lost for the time being. This we also must know. Because of some grace, these people may again question what they are doing and thereby alter their course. Any criminal can become a saint. The possibility for change is always there because the person has a buddhi. But for the time being, the people Krishna was talking about in this verse are lost. Shankara introduces a question here in his commentary. Given that Krishna had made his vision, his mata, so very clear, why do these people not follow it? What Krishna had said is reasonable and well explained. When the nishta, the karma nishta he talks about, has been so carefully reasoned out, why do the people not follow it? Why do they follow something else? The reason given is that each one acts according to his or her nature, swabhava. Because animals are programmed to behave in a certain manner, nothing can be done about it. Thus, when a donkey brays or a tiger kills, it is because it is their nature, their swabhava to do so. A human being also has a swabhava. Some past, perhaps even a remote past, is there for the person, and that becomes his or her swabhava. Whatever the person does is in keeping with his or her swabhava alone. The two next verses are particularly beautiful in this respect. Sadrisham cheshtate swasyaha prakritirjnanavanapi prakritim yanti bhutani nigrahah kim karishyati. Jnanavan, a wise person, api even, swasyaha, one's own, prakritehe, nature, sadrisham, in keeping with, cheshtate, acts, bhutani, beings, prakritim, one's own nature, yanti, follow, nigrahaha, control, kim, what, karishyati, will do. Even a wise person acts in keeping with his or her own nature, because all beings follow their nature, their own nature. Of what use is control? Prakriti is used to mean nature here because cause is involved in the sense that one's actions are determined by one's nature. This applies to everyone. Krishna says, even to a person who has knowledge, jnanavan api. The only difference is that the nature, the prakriti of a wise person is good, and therefore his or her actions will be good. This is the idea being conveyed here. And even if a jnani, a person of knowledge, performs actions according to his or her own swabhava, his or her own nature, what control is possible? Action in keeping with one's own swabhava applies to all living beings, including trees. If a tree is a sandalwood tree, the whole tree will have a particular aroma, not just its flowers. Every tree, flower, plant, insect, bird, animal, and human being, including the jnani, behaves and acts according to prakriti. Prakritim yanti bhutani. One's nature cannot be controlled. Prakriti being what it is, Neither the doer of the action nor anyone else can control it. Krishna himself cannot control it, as Shankara points out in his commentary. This is because the person has been given free will, which gives him or her the capacity to say no to anything. Therefore, what is there that can control it? Nigraha kim karishyati. Unless the person listens to Krishna's vision and decides to behave differently, how is he or she going to stop a particular behavior or action? And if the person chooses not to listen, there is no don't that can control what such a person does. Because everyone acts in keeping with his or her svabhava, no control is possible, be it Krishna's or the person's own control. Even if the guru says to stop a particular behavior, how is the person going to stop? All that will happen is that he or she will continue the behavior stealthily. The Gita also is incapable of controlling the person since it is his or her svabhava to act in such a way. But if everyone behaves according to his or her own nature, are we not going to have a problem? Where is free will in all this? If everyone were in the hands of Prakriti, doing whatever is to be done according to his or her nature, no one would have any say over his or her action. Of what use is free will then? If free will is not a factor, there is no such a thing as right and wrong. For right and wrong to be, free will must have a sphere. And if all action is in keeping with Prakriti, there is no such sphere. There seems then to be no scope for Dharma Shastra in all of this. If free will is not involved, what is the use of such statements as go to a guru and listen? Do this or that, otherwise you will get into trouble. Do this and you will get this, and so on. All such advice, along with the entire Dharma Shastra and Vedanta Shastra, would have no usefulness. But because you have free will, these books do have a usefulness. Therefore, the Guru can say, do this and don't do that. The Veda says not to eat meat, drink alcohol, or hurt another person. They are all mandates of the Shastra, but they are not simply arbitrary mandates. Why certain things should be done and other things should not be done is explained in a most reasonable way, and the necessary rationales are presented. But to whom are these reasonable mandates given? If everyone is behaving according to one's own nature, why is there a Dharma Shastra at all? The animals do not have the Dharma Shastra because they behave according to their nature. Animals also do not have any will. Even if you nicely ask a tiger not to kill anyone, it may pounce on you because it thinks you are going to attack it. Nor can you ask a cat not to mew. It will simply keep on mewing. This is why such creatures do not have books on ethics and scriptures, nor do they join any congregation, let alone work for moksha. The mandates are addressed only to human beings because they have free will. But here Krishna was saying that each one behaves according to his or her prakriti, and nothing can stop it. This came like a big bombshell for Arjuna because he had always thought he should do something. But now Krishna was saying, no, you just go by your prakriti because nothing can stop it anyway. What does this all mean? Here then, there is something that we must understand, and Krishna began his explanation in the next verse. Indriyasyendriyasyarthe ragadveshau vyavastitau tayor navashamagachet tauhyasya paripanthinau. Indriyasya indriyasya. Indriyasya arthe. With reference to the object of every sense organ, raga dveshau, attachment and aversion, vyavastitau are there. Tayoho of these two, vasham spell, na not, agachet should come under, he because, tau these two, asya ones, paripanthinau enemies. There is attachment and aversion with reference to every sense object. May one not come under the spell of these two because they are one's enemies. Repetition of the word indriyasya here is an example of a language style used in Sanskrit called vipsa. First, let us take the expression indriyasya arthe, meaning with reference to an object. Arthe of a given sense organ, indriyasya. In other words, a sense object. By repeating the word indriyasya in the phrase indriyasya arthe, the meaning conveyed is with reference to every sense object. The repetition conveys the meaning of every. This verse tells us that with reference to every sense object, there are two factors present, raga and dvesha, likes and dislikes. This verse is the key to everything that has been said thus far and contains the entire psychology of the Gita. The senses themselves do not have an aversion or an attachment to the sense objects. They are merely reporters. What is said here is that with reference to every sense object, there can be raga or dvesha on the part of a human being. Indriyasya arthe raga dveshau vyavastitau. This is a statement of fact. Likes and dislikes are due to Prakriti. With reference to any sense object, sound, shabda, touch, sparsha, form or color, rupa, taste, rasa, and or smell, gandha, there are likes and dislikes. Everyone has his or her own likes and dislikes, even the devas. Angels also have their own likes and dislikes. And why are these likes and dislikes present? Because of Prakriti, one's own nature. In this, you have no say at all. This is why when you tell someone, I love you, and the person asks why, you can only invent an answer. You do not really know why you love a person. Although one can say it is without reason, there is definitely a reason. So if you look into your psyche and ask yourself, what is it that makes you like a particular person? You will find a reason. This is why everyone has a person to like. In fact, he or she has been looking for that person. So many others came before, but not this one. Then suddenly the person appeared and there was an electrifying experience. All that can be said is that you love someone because of your svabhava, which can be called your subconscious. There is something causing you to love the person. The subconscious is the Prakriti, which may be the result of one's own past. If a man has to live his life with a certain woman, or if a woman has to live her life with this man, however miserable the person may be, there will be a liking for the person, and the Lord alone knows why. Being married to and living with another person is no joke. It is something that is definitely going to change the person's life. Both pain and pleasure will be there, depending upon who the person is. And why did you choose this person from among all the other people in the world? You cannot say that the Pizza Hut where you first met was responsible. You have seen many people in the Pizza Hut and nothing happened. If you had not met there, you would not have met you would have met somewhere else. So it is not a particular place that is responsible. This particular meeting took place because of something within yourself. That which connects two people in this way is called karma. Shankara says that karma, prarabdha karma, plays a role. Samskaras of dharma and adharma, punya and papa being there in everyone. This is why one person likes another person. In this life, too, from childhood onwards, one picks up a lot of likes and dislikes unknown to oneself. These are all buried in the person's subconscious, and this sub, like a submarine, will also surface. And it always surfaces at the right time. In the previous verse, Krishna said that everyone acts in accordance with his or her own nature. One expresses one's nature in terms of raga and dveshas, over which no control is possible. In the present verse, in the second line, free will is brought in. Do not come under the spell of these two likes and dislikes. Tayoho vasham na agachet. Krishna did not say, do not have likes and dislikes. Such a statement would have been meaningless. He was simply saying, may you not come under their spell. The logic of the mind. The mind behaves according to its own logic. It is meaningless to tell someone not to entertain a particular thought. The more the person tries not to have this thought, the more he or she will have it. In fact, it may even become an obsession, a fixation. If you try to avoid anything in the name of avoiding it, it is necessarily right there in your mind. For example, if I tell a man, when he chants a particular mantra, he should not think of a monkey. What will happen? Because he wants to follow my advice, before chanting the mantra, he will remember my advice. Don't think of a monkey. In order to avoid thinking of a monkey, he must think of the very thing that he has to avoid, monkey. And after some time, he will not just see one monkey. He will see all the varieties of monkeys he has seen in his life. If I ask you to think of a monkey, only one monkey will come to mind, one that has previously created an impact on your mind. One person may think of a rhesus monkey or an Indian monkey. Another may think of a chimpanzee or of King Kong. In any event, only one monkey will come to mind. However, if you want to avoid the thought of this particular monkey, you will find any number of monkeys coming, one by one, starting with your own monkey, followed by a rhesus monkey, then a chimpanzee, a gorilla, King Kong, rat monkeys, and a variety of African monkeys. They will all come one by one, all because you want to avoid thinking about a monkey. To tell someone not to think of a particular object is meaningless. This is where free will comes in. The statement, do not come under their spell, tayoho vasham na agachet, implies your will. Problems always arise when we try to avoid the thoughts themselves. Some people spend their lifetime trying to avoid certain thoughts because they are told that some thoughts are good and others are bad. In the process, they remain stuck with the very thoughts they are trying to avoid. In fact, these thoughts have nothing to do with you. They have only to do with Prakriti. Therefore, what can you do about thoughts? If a commoner happens to see a princess and develops a raga, a desire for her, what is he to do? Because of his status, he cannot even enter the palace, and yet he has a great love for the princess. He can love her all right, but he can hardly proceed on that love. What control do you have over liking a person? None. Nor should you have any control. In fact, you should leave it alone, because if you try to control it, you will be in trouble. You will be meddling with your mind, and when you rub against your mind, you rub against nature. And in this process, you get rubbed too. You cannot avoid having, if anyone wants to stop anywhere, let me know. Huh?
Here,
Yeah.
Ramaraji,
Yes.
just go down little. I like that sentence. Here. In fact, these thoughts have nothing to do with you. They have only to do with Prakriti. That is really, means thoughts will come and go because of the Prakriti what we are in. Now it is left to us whether to hold on to that thought or not to that. That is what is Raga Dvesha. No?
That is what is free will,
Free will.
isn't it?
And Raga Dvesha also.
See, Raga
Because of your,
Dveshas are
because of the
your
Prakriti. Yeah, that is what I mean. In fact, these thoughts have nothing to do with you. They have only to do with Prakriti. Some people spend their lifetime trying to avoid.
Yeah, Prakriti plus environment, the food you eat. That
is
also,
what Prakriti. All are Prakriti.
Yeah.
You are born with that element, 5 elements. That is what is Prakriti. So wonderful it is. Really. In fact, these thoughts have nothing to do with you. They have only to do with Prakriti. I like this sentence.
Yeah, when
Really
you were
good.
reading today about the free will or the why person likes another person, and this is all explained in astrology. I just wanted to mention that there are some bhavas, some houses in the chart, like 3, 6, 10, 11. They have free will. And according to what the grahas, what rashis are in there, you will be choosing accordingly. There you have the free will, but some houses are fixed houses. Just wanted to make, and why someone likes someone, because there is a system called Navatara. According to your nakshatra and other person's nakshatra, either you could have a feeling of enemy, like you might feel somebody as your enemy for no reason, or somebody mitra or param mitra. It's very fascinating to just know about it.
You cannot avoid having certain thoughts. Some of our modern spiritual literature is replete with statements declaring that you should avoid having certain thoughts. There are so many do's and don'ts that a seeker becomes nothing but a pack of nerves. Prior to becoming a seeker, the person was much more acceptable to himself or herself. But after reading so many books, the person finds so much garbage in his or her mind. Because moksha is beyond all concepts of good and bad and beyond concepts themselves, cultivating and avoiding good and bad thoughts becomes meaningless. All thought is Prakriti. And how is your will involved here? Will is not to determine what you should and should not think, but how far you should go with the thoughts that arise. Your activities are not caused by the likes and dislikes appearing in your mind, but by your identification with them. Because you are identified with your raga dveshas, you go along with them, you being the will. The commoner who discovered a love for the princess just leaves his raga alone if he is an intelligent man. That is, if he is a viveki, one who has discrimination. If he is not a viveki, he will go along with his raga and get beaten up in the process. Therefore, allow the raga dveshas to be what they are. The mind is a beautiful instrument as long as you let it think and do not meddle with it. Otherwise, you will be in for problems. It takes very little time to become insane. What is being said here is, while you can go by your likes and dislikes, you should make use of your free will to do what is right and avoid doing what is wrong. This is karma yoga. Do not come under the spell of your raga dveshas, because if you do, they become enemies for you. The raga dveshas themselves do not form the enemies. It is your coming under their spell that turns them into your foes. When you are under the spell of your raga dveshas, you do not do what is to be done, and you do what is not to be done. In this way, raga dveshas become obstacles for you. This means that likes and dislikes are those into whose hands you deliver yourself. It is these raga dveshas that become your obstacles. Such likes and dislikes become binding and therefore enemies. Because they rob away your reason, they are likened to thieves and become your enemies. Tauhi asya paripanthina. Therefore, without worrying about what happens in the mind, simply go by what is to be done and not to be done. It is like if you are coming under the spell of raga dveshas and you let your actions be governed by them, they become an obstacle. Like, for instance, you will not do what is to be done. You will end up doing what is not to be done. For instance, if one is a diabetic and he should not eat sweets, he will eat he will do what is not to be done because he will follow his raga. He has a raga for gulab jamun, for instance. He will eat gulab jamun, and which is what is not to be done. So in essence, he's just following his raga, and therefore it becomes a binding obstacle for him. So karma yoga is doing what is to be done, using your free will and removing this filter of raga dvesha. You can have raga dveshas. That is what Shankara is saying. That's what Swamiji is also saying. That's what Krishna is also saying. Having raga dvesha is not the problem. They are but natural because they are born in the mind. They're born of Prakriti. They come naturally. But getting under their spell, that is the problem. Further, Krishna said, Shreyan swadharmo vigunaha paradharmat swanushthitat swadharme nidhanam shreyaha paradharmo bhayavaha. Su anushthitat paradharmat. As compared to the well-performed dharma of another, vigunaha, imperfect, swadharmaha, one's own dharma, shreyan, better, swadharme, in one's own dharma, nidhanam, death, shreyaha is better, paradharmaha, the dharma of another, bhayavaha, is fraught with fear. Better is one's own imperfectly performed dharma than the well-performed dharma of another. Death in one's own dharma is better. The dharma of another is fraught with fear. We have seen that with reference to sense objects, forms, sounds, smells, tastes, etc., certain objects are looked upon as desirable while others are not. These likes and dislikes arise in your mind in the form of various types of wants for which you are not responsible. It is here that the Shastra comes in. Wherever there is doership and enjoyership centered on free will, wherever free will has access, the Shastra has its sphere of influence. The Shastra deals with dharma and adharma, right and wrong, satya and mithya, the real and unreal. All these are dependent on viveka, vichara, discriminative inquiry for the person who is free. Therefore, the Shastra is not deemed to be useless simply because the previous verse declared that each person behaves according to his or her own nature, which cannot be controlled. This Prakriti, one's nature, is only with reference to the appearance of Raga Dveshas in the form of various thoughts arising in your mind. It is true that your Swabhava, your nature, is responsible for the appearance of these Raga Dveshas. But whether you go along with them depends entirely upon you. There are always certain governing factors for any course of action. What is proper, what is useful to you, what is feasible, all determine which raga, which like you choose to follow or fulfill. Certain norms of pragmatism and ethics, dharma and adharma, also have to be taken into account.
Actually, this verse has been misused by many.
Yeah, misused or
They
misunderstood, actually, I think.
are
Right?
misunderstood and used also. Dharma means they think it is religion here. Dharma is the right way of doing work. You know, many people think, but I am not understanding what is the others' dharma. I don't know.
That is what we'll read. We'll read when we. An ethical person need not necessarily be a karma yogi. This we read earlier also, right? Because for karma yoga, you require the understanding and recognition of Ishvara. You need to be a bhakta in order to be a karma yogi. If there is an awareness of Ishvara in your choice of action, it is karma yoga. Until then, it is simply the choice of a mature person. A mature person is one who has ethics, for which one need not have religion. Bertrand Russell, for example, wrote a book called Why I Am Not a Christian. He never claimed to have any religious leanings and even wrote in so many words that he had nothing to do with such matters. At the same time, this man was also a clean person and the first to raise his voice against the proliferation of nuclear weapons. He was a man of great ethics without having any religion. Any thinking person understands ethics. Everyone knows what others should and should not do to him or her. Everyone also knows that others expect the same in return. Thus, ethics are born of common sense, not of religion, and can be understood more clearly and assimilated if the person has a certain degree of maturity. One's own experiences in life and understanding are enough to understand what is proper and improper. Thus, no one needs religious scriptures or mandates in order to be an ethical person. However, the religious scriptures of the world add something to ethical values. They say that if you perform an improper action, you cannot get away with it. You will have to pay for it later. This is where the concepts of punya and papa, merit and demerit, come in. According to the karma performed, there is a certain result that comes to you. It is like a ticket you get from a parking violation, which is not going to be as severe as a ticket from a speeding offense. Similarly, according to the karma performed, there is a result called adrishta phala, punya and papa. That there is such a result as adrishta phala is additional information gleaned from the scriptures. But for merely understanding what is ethical and unethical, religion is not required. Thus, a person can be ethical without being a karma yogi. He or she becomes a karma yogi only when there is an appreciation on the part of the person that Ishvara is the giver of the results of action, karma phala data. A karma yogi is a bhakta, a devotee, one who does not look upon one's possessions as one's own. For such a person, a physical body is given, a mind is given, the world is given, opportunities are given, resources are given, skills are given, time is given, place is given, everything is given. Only when one appreciates the given and also the giver behind the given is there karma yoga. Ethically, therefore, one can be clean, but this in itself is not karma yoga, all of which has been pointed out. If what is to be done by you at this time and place and what you want to do happen to concur, then your action is spontaneous and no thinking is required. Also, when what is not to be done is something that you do not want to do, avoidance or withdrawal from such an action is spontaneous. Even if someone asks you to do it, your no is spontaneous because you do not have any such inclination, and also the action is not to be done. Spontaneous action. So I think we are getting this inkling of Swadharma over here, isn't it? So what you want to do and what is required of you to do, if that is in sync, then that action is spontaneous. And what you do not want to do is what is not to be done, then that avoidance is also spontaneous. I think it is that is the hint between the difference between Swadharma and Paradharma. Anyway,
Yeah,
let's read further.
yeah. Good, I'm getting it.
Yeah, let's read further. Spontaneous action. Thus, with reference to certain raga dveshas, there is spontaneity because you are in harmony with dharma. You do not rub against anything. The laws are not being rubbed against. In fact, you are in harmony with the whole setup. But if your raga dveshas do not conform to right and wrong, dharma and adharma, there is a rub. This is why Lord Krishna also said here, death in your own dharma is better. The dharma of another is fraught with fear. Swadharme nidhanam shreyaha paradharmo bhayavaha. The choice you have is only with reference to what you are going to do. You have no choice whatsoever about what happens in your head. Thoughts just happen and you have no control over them. But whether you go along with them or not is definitely subject to choice. Swadharma means what is to be done by oneself, one's own dharma. Dharma meaning karma here. In a society where the duties are very well spelled out, each person knows exactly what is expected of him or her. In the Vedic culture, for example, each of the 4 groups of people, Varnas, had certain duties, which were very clearly defined. For a person of a given Varna who is a student, there are certain duties. Then as a householder or married person, he or she has a different set of duties. So too for a Vanaprastha, one who is preparing for a life of renunciation. Although such clearly defined systems no longer operate in the world, one thing is clear. In any given situation, there is a certain response required on your part in terms of action, and this becomes your duty. Duty is not something that you have to be told about by someone, really speaking. It becomes evident as you look at the situation that you are in and understand it as it is. In this way, what is to be done becomes obvious to you. If you do not understand the situation you find yourself in, you can always seek the help of someone in order to understand what your duty is in terms of what should and should not be done. Someone who is more informed, who has more experience, or who is more capable and placed in such a way that he is able to spell out your duties can do this for you. The concept of Swadharma needs to be seen also in the spirit of this verse. In terms of one's own karma, Swadharma, what is to be done, even if one is destroyed in the process. Doing one's own karma is far better than doing the karma of another person, meaning that it is useless to want to do what someone else is doing. Do only what you have to do. Suppose the goalkeeper in a soccer game decides to run like the other players do, because the ball never seems to come to him anyway. It would be a disaster. In other words, if he decides to do the job of the other players, even though it is his job to stand between the posts, it would not work. What is being said here is that if standing between the posts is your job, you had better do it. If the ball does not come to you, it means the other team is not scoring goals. And if it comes too often, you can enjoy the action. It is not as though you are always going to be just standing there. Sometimes there will be some action to perform. Just because the other players run does not mean that you should also run. Such a beautiful example. Similarly,
Yeah,
the job,
mother has to do mother's job, that is feeding the baby and like that. I feel that way also. So everyone has to know what is the responsibility. So there in our basic course, the responsibility point is coming, to tell this only, I think. So wonderful.
similarly, the job of a bolt in a piece of machinery is to sit tight. But suppose the bolt is teased by the piston that says, "Why aren't you doing any action? I'm the only one doing anything here. All you are doing is sitting there tightly. Why don't you do something?" Hearing this once or twice, the bolt may simply say, "This fellow is just blabbering. My job is to sit tight. That's how my maker, the manufacturer, made me. Therefore, let me ignore what the piston is saying." But eventually the bolt may think, "Why should I not also move? I think the piston is actually making some sense. After all, I do sit tightly all the time while he keeps going. Should I not also do something?" Then he may become my friend. I'm also part of the machinery. Why shouldn't I do anything? Having decided thus, the bolt has to struggle to move because it has been sitting so tightly for a long time. It tries to move one way and cannot. Then it tries to move the other way and begins to shift. Happily, it says, "I am also doing now. I am also doing now. I am also doing now. I am also doing now." Whereupon the bolt falls to the ground. Before any time at all, the piston also falls out, and the entire mechanism comes to a standstill, all because of one bolt wanting to do someone else's job. Can any job be said to be really better than another? Which is better for the bolt, sitting tightly or moving? Jobs differ. One fellow's job is to sit tightly. Another job is to move. One is not to do the job of the other person in the overall scheme of things. Because someone is working hard on a construction site does not mean that someone else has to do the same. Working hard is not the issue. What is to be understood is that there are different types of work. Sitting tight is also difficult work because even though there is a tendency to move, you should not move. If, for example, you are an orderly in an intensive care unit. Similarly, each one has his or her own duty to perform in a given situation, and that duty is only to be done by the person whose duty it is. It is better to die guarding your post than to do something else just because it is more convenient, more remunerative, more likable, and so on. This does not work at all. You see this problem everywhere in today's society. If you have monetary satisfaction, you may not have job satisfaction. And if you have job satisfaction, you may not have monetary satisfaction. You may love your job, but you cannot own even a small house. Paying rent is also a problem, so that you find yourself still living in a one-room apartment. If you have job satisfaction, but such satisfaction does not produce the money you need, what kind of job satisfaction is this? A man who is in this situation usually becomes more practical when he marries. He gives up the job he loves and takes another. In terms of money, it is a better job. But now he's sitting in front of a computer all day long. The additional money providing him with no job satisfaction whatsoever. I think we'll stop here today and we'll take up Swadharma tomorrow. Let's all introspect about this after we finish this session. For 5-10 minutes, let us just do our own internal manana, and then we'll come back tomorrow, right? Om Loka Samasta Sukhino Bhavantu. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Om Tat Sat. Shri Krishna Arpanamastu. Jai Gurudev.
Jai
Jai
Gurudev. Thank
Gurudev.